My son bought his father-in-law a $90,000 truck. And then he told me he couldn't afford my $18 heart medicine. Let me say that again. He bought a brand new, top-of-the-line, fully loaded truck for his wife's father. And then, just days later, he stood in my trailer, looked me in the eye and said, "Dad, I'm really sorry, but things are just too tight right now." That was the moment my world shattered. Not with a loud crash, but with a quiet, almost casual whisper that sliced through every memory of every sleepless night I had spent working double shifts to buy him shoes, to buy him books, to make sure he never felt poor. I'm a simple man. I spent 32 years of my life working on an assembly line at a factory that made parts for agricultural equipment. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't easy. But it was honest. It was a paycheck that I stretched until it was practically transparent just so I could give my son, Derek, a chance at a better life. His mother walked out on us when he was 8 years old. She said she was tired of the grind, tired of the trailer, tired of me. She left a note on the kitchen table and a hole in my heart the size of a crater. But I had Derek. He was my reason to get up in the morning. He was the reason I ignored the burn in my back and the ache in my joints. I told myself, "You can fall apart later. Right now, you have a little boy to raise." I raised him to be honest. I raised him to be kind. I worked 14-hour days, often coming home smelling of grease and metal shavings, just to pay for his soccer cleats, his school trips, his tutoring. I didn't have the money for a college fund, not really, but I put away whatever I could. When he graduated high school, I handed him an envelope with $4,000 in it, weathered bills I had saved from my overtime checks. I told him, "This is for your future, Derek. Don't waste it. Go be something." He went to college. He met a girl named Andrea. She was beautiful, smart, and came from a family that had money. Real money. They lived in a house with columns on the porch and a lawn that was always green, even in the summer drought. I remember the first time I met them at their house. I drove my 15-year-old pickup truck, the one with the duct tape on the side mirror, and parked it between a Mercedes and a BMW. I was so proud of Derek. He had managed to climb out of the hole I had been born in. He was wearing a collared shirt, talking about stocks and real estate. I barely understood what he was saying. It felt like we were speaking different languages. But his mother-in-law, Carol, and his father-in-law, Robert, they were always polite. They had that cold kind of politeness. They smiled at me, but I could see the pity in their eyes. They looked at the calluses on my hands and the sun-damaged skin on my face, and I knew what they were thinking. This is his father. Look where Derek came from. I used to tell myself that I was overthinking it, that I was insecure. I told myself that Derek had just grown up. He was a man now with a family of his own. He had a wife and eventually a daughter named Lily. My granddaughter. The light of my life. I would babysit Lily whenever they asked, which wasn't as often as I would have liked, but I took what I could get. I would bring her to the park, buy her ice cream with money I couldn't really afford to spend, and listen to her laugh. That laugh made all those years of backbreaking work feel like nothing. But slowly, I started to notice the cracks. The phone calls from Derek became shorter. The visits became rarer. He used to call me on Sundays just to talk about sports or ask for advice. Now, he would only call if he needed something or if he was driving somewhere and had nothing better to do. He stopped asking about my job. He stopped asking about my health. It was always about him, his job, his promotion, his new car, his house, his life. I tried to be happy for him. I really did. But there was a part of me that felt like I was being left behind. Like the father who sacrificed everything to give him a jumpstart had now become an inconvenient reminder of where he came from. I was the trailer park, the duct tape, the cheap cologne. And he was the country club, the luxury SUV, the designer suits. Then things got worse. Andrea's father, Robert, seemed to take a special interest in Derek's career. He was retired, but he knew people. He had connections. He helped Derek get a better job, a management position that I didn't even understand. Derek owed a lot to Robert, and he started to act like it. He started calling Robert Dad. I don't know why that hurt as much as it did, but it felt like a knife twisting in my gut. I had been dad for 35 years. I had earned that title with sweat and tears. And suddenly, this man who had never changed a diaper in his life, this man who had never worked a day of manual labor, was getting the respect I had starved for. But I never said anything. I bit my tongue. I smiled at the family gatherings where I felt like a ghost at a banquet. I held my granddaughter and tried to be grateful. About a year ago, I started having these pains in my chest. It wasn't a heart attack, but it was a dull, constant ache. My doctor told me I had a cardiovascular condition. My heart was getting weaker. I wasn't going to die tomorrow, but if I didn't take care of it, I would be in trouble in a few years. He prescribed me a medication that I had to take daily. It was the only thing that kept the pain away. I applied for government assistance for the medicine. I was on a fixed income now. My pension barely covered my rent and food. But the application was taking forever. The bureaucracy was a nightmare. Paperwork kept getting lost. They told me to be patient. So, while I was waiting for approval, I had to pay out of pocket. Let me tell you about the cost. The medicine cost $18 for a 30-day supply. That's it. 60 cents a day. It was the only thing standing between me and a hospital bed. I could handle the rent. I could handle eating ramen and eggs for dinner. But I couldn't skip that medicine. I told myself that as long as I had that pill, I would be okay. I would survive to see Lily graduate high school, maybe even college. I had managed to scrape by for a few months. I budgeted like a hawk. I turned the air conditioning off in the middle of summer just to save the $10 on my electric bill. I walked to the store instead of driving to save gas. I was doing okay. I was just barely okay. Then the week came. It was a bad week. My pension check was delayed. There was some glitch in the system. I had paid my rent, but I was left with $23 to my name. I had a few days left of my medication, but I knew I was going to have to face the music. I was going to have to choose between eating for the next 2 weeks or buying my pills. I decided to call Derek. I hadn't asked him for a single dime since he graduated college. I had never asked for help. I was too proud. I was too stubborn. But this was my life we were talking about. I dialed his number with a lump in my throat. He answered on the second ring. Hey, Dad, what's up? I tried to sound casual. Hey, son. How are you? How's Lily? We're good. Listen, I'm kind of in the middle of something. I'm meeting a client in 10 minutes. What's going on? The rush in his voice made me freeze. I didn't want to be a burden. I never wanted to be a burden. I took a deep breath. I hate to ask you this, son, but I'm in a bit of a pickle. My pension check was delayed, and I need to get my medication refilled. It's not expensive. It's only $18. Could you spot me until my check comes through? I promise I'll pay you back next week. There was a pause. A long, painful pause. I could hear him breathing on the other end of the line. Then he sighed. It was a heavy sigh, like I was asking him for a kidney. Dad, he said slowly, I'm really sorry, but things are just so tight right now. You know, with the mortgage and the car payments and Lily's school, I just don't have any spare cash at the moment. I almost dropped the phone. Spare cash? $18? I couldn't process it. My mind went blank. I was standing in my small, cramped kitchen, holding a cordless phone that had a cracked screen, and I was looking at a pile of bills I couldn't pay. I'm not asking for $100, son, I said, my voice cracking. It's $18. For the medicine I need to make my heart work. Dad, I know, I get it, but I'm stretched thin. Andrea and I had a budget meeting, and we're cutting back on everything for the next few months. I have to think about my family. My family. He said my family. He was talking about his wife and daughter. And in that moment, I understood that I wasn't in that category anymore. I was an outsider. Okay, I said, my voice barely a whisper. I understand. I'm sorry to bother you. It's okay, Dad. I'll call you next week. That was it. The click of the phone hitting his receiver echoed in my trailer like a gunshot. I just stood there for a long time, staring at the wall. I didn't cry. I think I was too shocked to cry. I just felt numb. I went to the bathroom and looked at my pill bottle. I had 3 left. 3 pills for the next week. I took one out and looked at the small white tablet. It was the only thing keeping me alive. And it was worth less than what my son spent on his morning coffee at the fancy cafe he liked to go to. That evening, I did the only thing I could think of. I took a knife and I cut the pills in half. I figured I would take half a dose just to stretch it. The doctor had told me never to do that it could be dangerous, but what else was I supposed to do? 3 days later, I was scrolling through Facebook on my outdated phone. I don't even know why I still looked at social media. It was just a sea of people posting vacation photos and expensive dinners. But then I saw it. A photo of a shiny, enormous pickup truck. It was midnight blue with massive tires and chrome trim. It was parked in front of a house I didn't recognize, but it looked like a showroom. The caption read, "A little surprise for the best father-in-law in the world. He's been working hard on his farm, and he needed an upgrade. Thank you, Derek. We love you." I stared at the photo for a long time. I zoomed in on the truck. I looked at the fancy interior. I looked at the massive engine. I scrolled through the comments. People were congratulating Robert. People were praising Derek. People were talking about how generous he was. I did the math in my head. A truck like that, brand new, fully loaded. It was $90,000. $90,000. And he had just told me he couldn't afford $18. Felt like a physical blow. My heart, the one that was already struggling, started to hammer in my chest. It wasn't just anger. It was a profound, soul-crushing sense of betrayal. I was the one who had worked double shifts so he could eat. I was the one who went without so he could have. And I had been reduced to something less than his morning latte. I didn't call him. I didn't text him. I didn't write a passive-aggressive post on Facebook. I just sat there in the dark, feeling the weight of my loneliness. The next few days were a fog. I went to the pharmacy with my last $2 and begged the pharmacist to give me just 3 pills. Just enough to get me through the week. He was a kind man, a kid in his 30s who wore glasses. He knew me. He took pity on me and gave me a few samples. "Don't worry about it, Mr. Henderson," he said. "You're a good man. Good man." My son didn't think so. My son had just spent $90,000 on a gift for a man who had never even held his hand when he was scared. Then came the Thursday. It was a rainy, miserable afternoon. The rain was coming down in sheets, pounding against the tin roof of my trailer. It was one of those days that makes you feel twice as old. I was sitting in my worn-out recliner, feeling sorry for myself, when I heard a knock on the door. I didn't get many visitors. Most of my old friends had moved away. My brothers were scattered across the state. I figured it was the landlord coming to complain about the leaky faucet I hadn't had the money to fix. I shuffled over to the door and opened it. Standing on my small, rickety porch was Robert. His wife was waiting in the truck. No, not his new truck. The old one. He was soaking wet from the rain. He didn't have an umbrella. He was holding something in his hands. A manila envelope. I was stunned. I hadn't spoken to Robert in months. He certainly had never come to my trailer before. He was dressed in a nice polo shirt, but the rain had ruined it. He looked uncomfortable, like he was standing in a sewer. "Mr. Henderson," he said, his voice formal and a little shaky. "Can I come in?" I nodded, stepping aside. My trailer was a mess. There were books everywhere, and it was stuffy. I cleared a pile of mail off the small dining table. "Sorry for the mess. Have a seat." He sat down, placing the envelope on the table between us. He looked around the trailer. He saw the cracked countertops. He saw the sagging floor. He saw the medicine bottle sitting on the counter, next to a stack of unpaid bills. I saw his eyes linger on the medicine bottle. "What's this about?" I asked, my voice guarded. He cleared his throat. "I know we haven't always seen eye to eye, but I have to tell you something. Something I should have told you a long time ago." I braced myself. I figured he was going to tell me that Derek had decided to cut me out of Lily's life, that they were moving away, that I was a bad influence. "Derek and Andrea have been having some trouble," he said. "Financial trouble. The house is too expensive. They have credit card debt. They borrowed money from us, Carol and me." I didn't react. I just stared at him. "When Derek bought that truck for me," he continued, "he did it to impress Andrea. And to be honest, he did it to make me happy because I had been helping them so much. But I knew it was a stupid purchase. The truck is too big. I didn't need it. I told him not to, but he insisted. He said it was a gift. He looked at me then, and for the first time I saw real emotion in his eyes. It wasn't pity. It was shame. I didn't know about the phone call, he said, his voice lowering. I didn't know you asked him for help. He told me the other day. He was bragging about it. He said, I told my old man to get lost, he's always mooching. He laughed about it. My blood ran cold. Mooching. He called me mooching. I was furious, Robert said. I told him that was disgraceful. I couldn't believe he would treat his own father that way. The man who raised him. He paused, running a hand through his wet hair. But it wasn't until yesterday that I realized the truth. I had to take that truck in for a detail. I went to the dealership to get some paperwork. And I saw the contract. He pushed the envelope towards me. Take a look. My hands were trembling. I pulled out the papers. It was a loan agreement. Derek's signature was all over it. But the price was wrong. The truck wasn't $90,000. It was $130,000. The interest rate was astronomical. Derek had been ripped off. He had been so desperate to buy Robert's affection that he had signed a loan that would ruin him. He was paying more than double the value of the truck over the life of the loan. He was drowning in debt and he was trying to pretend he was rich. But Robert didn't stop there. He pulled out another sheet of paper. That's not the worst of it, he said. When I realized what a lousy businessman Derek was, I decided to look into something else. This house he lives in. Andrea told me it was a gift from you. I blinked. What? Yes, Robert said, nodding grimly. She told me that you gave them the down payment on the house. That you inherited money and gave it to them. They told me that's why they didn't have the money to help you. Because you had it all along. I was speechless. I didn't have an inheritance. I had nothing. I had never given them a cent for a house. I had never even seen their mortgage statement. But then the realization hit me like a truck. $100,000 truck. They had been lying. They had been lying about me to Robert and Carol to make me look like a rich miser who wouldn't help them, so they could justify not supporting me. I realized the truth, Robert said. You didn't give them anything. They lied. They said your money was hidden. That you refused to help them buy the house because you were greedy. I can't believe I listened to them. He looked at me, and his eyes were glistening. You know, I never liked you much, Mr. Henderson. I always thought you were common, that you were holding Derek back. But I was wrong. I've been a fool. He took my hand. He actually held my hand. Derek is a liar. He's not the man I thought he was. And you're the man I should have been. I felt the tears welling up in my eyes, but I held them back. Then Robert looked at the medicine bottle on the counter. He pointed at it. Is that? It's $18, I said, my voice barely breaking. I don't have it. It's my heart medication. Robert's face turned pale. He looked like he was going to be sick. He didn't say a word. He just stood up, walked to the envelope and pulled out a thick stack of cash. He put it in my hands. Take this, he said. Go to the pharmacy. Get your medicine. Buy groceries. Get the best care you can buy. And I'll take care of the rest. But the money wasn't what shook me. It was what he said next. That's not a gift, Mr. Henderson. That's a down payment. Because I'm going to need your help. I'm going to make this right. For the next hour, Robert told me the details. He was going to the bank to transfer the truck loan into his own name. He was going to take the truck back to the dealership and lose the money, just to keep Derek from drowning. But he was also going to call a lawyer. I'm going to expose him to the rest of the family, Robert said. To Andrea. To Carol. They need to know what kind of man she married. He's a fraud. A liar. And I'm not going to let him destroy his wife's life just to maintain his ego. He looked at me. But I need you to stand by me. We can't let him manipulate us anymore. I didn't know what to say. For years, Robert had been my enemy. My rival. The man who took my son away. And now, he was the one who had come to my trailer in the rain to rescue me. He was the one who was offering me justice. The following week, Robert and I met in secret at a diner. He showed me the bank documents. He had paid off the truck loan. He had taken the loss. But he had also found out that Derek was cheating on Andrea with a woman from work. It was just the final nail in the coffin. "I'm going to confront him," Robert said. "And I want you to be there. I want you to see him tell the truth for once in his pathetic life." I agreed. I felt a fierce anger I had never known. This wasn't about the $18 anymore. It was about the years of lies, the years of humiliation, the years of me being treated like a ghost by my own flesh and blood. The day came. We met at their house. Robert had called a meeting. Andrea was there. Carol was there. Derek was there, looking nervous. He didn't expect me to be there. He smiled at me, that fake, charming smile he had perfected. "Hey, Dad," he said. "What are you doing here? It's just a family thing." Robert stepped forward. "No, Derek. This is about you." He presented his evidence. He told Andrea about the debt. He told her about the lies she had told. He told her about the mistress. Andrea didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just sat there, frozen. She looked at Derek. "Is it true?" Derek's face went white. He tried to lie. He tried to cover it up. "It's not what it looks like. Dad, you have to believe me." But I looked him in the eye, and I said, "No, you don't get to call me that. Not today. You had a chance. You had a chance to be my son. And you threw it away for a truck." He opened his mouth to argue, but Robert silenced him. "Pack a bag, Derek. You're out of the house. Andrea is staying here." The look on Derek's face was one of absolute terror. He wasn't terrified of losing his wife. He wasn't terrified of losing his daughter. He was terrified of losing the house, the money, the status. In that moment, I saw him clearly for the first time. He wasn't a victim of circumstance. He was a victim of his own greed. He had sold his soul for a life he couldn't afford, and he had pushed me aside because I was a reminder of the reality he was trying to escape. He stormed out of the house. Robert walked over to me and put a hand on my shoulder. "He'll call you," Robert said. "When he's broken, when he has nothing left, he'll come crawling back." I nodded. "I know, but I won't be there." Robert looked at me. I looked at his truck outside the window, the one Derek bought him. "Do you want the truck?" Robert asked me. I stared at him. "I want my medicine," I said. "I want my granddaughter to visit me on Sundays. And I want my son to learn what it means to be a man." A few weeks passed. Derek was living in a cheap apartment. His work found out about the affair and the financial issues. He lost his job. Andrea divorced him and she got full custody of Lily. I started to see Lily more often. Andrea brought her to my trailer every weekend. The trailer was still small, but now it had a new TV, and the fridge was full of food. Robert had made sure of that. He had given me a debit card and told me to call it a salary for being his new partner in crime. We didn't see it as charity. We saw it as a partnership. One evening, I was sitting on my porch when I saw a car pull up. It was Derek. He looked terrible. He was unshaven, his clothes were wrinkled, and his eyes were hollow. "Dad," he said, walking up to me. I didn't get up. I just looked at him. "You were right," he said, his voice cracking. "I was a fool. I lost everything. Andrea took Lily. Robert hates me. I'm drowning in debt I can't pay back. What do you want, Derek?" He looked at me. "I need help. I need you to forgive me." I looked at the horizon. The sunset was beautiful. The world kept turning. I thought about the days when he was a little boy, sitting on my lap, telling me he wanted to be just like me when he grew up. "I can't give you money, Derek," I said. "I don't have any. But I can give you the same advice I gave you when you were a boy. Be honest. Work hard. And never, ever take the people who love you for granted." He started to cry. He fell to his knees on my porch. "Please, Dad. I have nothing left." I looked down at him, this man who was my son. I felt the ache in my chest. The pain of years of sacrifice, years of love, years of betrayal. I stood up. I walked into my trailer, and I closed the door. I didn't look back. The next day, the mailman came to my door. He had a package. It was a letter from Robert. Inside was a picture of Robert, Andrea, Carol, and Lily, smiling on a boat. Behind them was a truck. But it wasn't the expensive truck. It was an old, beat-up truck. A truck that was paid for, and there was a note attached. Mr. Henderson, we've sold the big truck. We bought this one for the farm. It does the job just fine. And here's the best part. I used some of the leftover money to set up a college fund for Lily. Not a big one, but enough, because she needs to learn the value of $1 and the value of family. If you ever need a ride, I'm here. And if you ever want to see Lily, just call. You're her grandfather. You always will be. I read the note 3 times. I put it in my pocket, took my medicine, and sat on my porch. Derek came back to the trailer a few more times, begging. I never let him in. I listened to him cry, but I didn't open the door. It's been a year now. I watch Lily grow up. She's in 2nd grade. She draws me pictures. She calls me Pops. She doesn't know about the money or the lies. She just knows I'm her grandfather. And Derek? He's still trying to put his life together. He is working 2 jobs. He is paying off his debts. He calls me on Sundays, but now it's different. He's not begging. He's just talking, just like we used to. He talks about the weather. He talks about his day. He talks about Lily. I let him talk. I let him apologize. But I don't trust him. Not yet. I learned a lot this year. I learned that love isn't a transaction. It isn't about what you get out of it. But I also learned that you have to protect yourself. You have to let people fall so they can learn to fly. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is close the door. My son bought his father-in-law a $90,000 truck. Then he told me he couldn't afford my $18 heart medicine. But that day, he taught me the most valuable lesson of all. How much I'm actually worth. And it turned out my value was never in the money I had. It was in the door I could close, and the door I could open for my granddaughter. The ultimate revenge wasn't making him suffer. It was finding peace in my own trailer, and knowing I had survived. Not because of him, but despite him. And that's more than any truck could ever buy.